Okay, I'm going to show you guys a quick example, a practical example of how you might use method overriding. Okay, so if you remember, we have this shape superclass. It's got a color. And we created in the last video, we created this display area method. And so for a generic shape, we just basically print out that, hey, we can't compute the area. Okay. Then we created this circle class, which extends shape. So circle is a subclass of shape. We've added the attribute radius, and we have overridden the display area method with this system.out.println the area is, and then we show them what the area is. So shape has a public void display area that just says we can't compute it, and circle has the exact same public void display area, but it does something different. It actually prints out what the area of that circle would be. Okay, so what I'm going to do here in my implementation class is I am going to say, I'm going to create a new array of shapes. So I'm going to say shape shapes equals new shape, and I'll make it of size 5 for now. Okay? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it up with different kinds of shapes. So we'll say shapes 0 equals new shape, and we'll make this one a red shape. Okay? Then we'll do shapes 1 equals new shape, blue. Okay, now, here's where it gets interesting. Because circle is a subclass of shape, okay, I can actually do this. I can say shapes 2 equals new shape, new circle. Okay, you might be saying to yourself, now wait a second. I thought that you were making an array of shapes. Well, I am, but circles are shapes because circles are subclasses of shape. So I'm allowed to do this. The same way up here, I was allowed to do shape S2 equals new circle. That's essentially what I'm doing down here. So I can fill up my shape array with both generic shapes and circles if I want to. Okay? So I'm going to make shapes 3. I'll make this one also a circle, I guess. Maybe we'll make this one black. And maybe we'll make the last one just a generic shape again. So we'll make this one orange. Okay. All right, so now I have this array of shapes, and some of the things in my shape array are just generic shape objects, and some of them in my shape, some of the objects in my shape array are circles. Okay? Now here's the interesting thing. Okay, if I was to write a loop, I is less than shapes.length, I plus plus. Okay. If I was to do system.out.println, or actually, instead of do that, you know what, let's use our overridden method. Let's use our display area method. So we'll do shapes I.display area. Okay. Now, what you will notice, if I compile and run this, is, let me go ahead and expand this up a little bit so you can see. Okay. So you see that when I ran this, okay, here's my, all right, here's my for loop. Okay. So the first time through the loop for shape 0, when I did a display area, it said, oh, I can't compute the area. It's a generic shape. The next time through, it said, again, can't compute the area. The third time through the loop, when it called display area, it said, oh, in this case, I've got a circle. So I can actually use the display area that's defined in circle rather than the one that's defined in shape. Okay? And so I got the area is, and then for the last one, which was back to a normal shape, says, okay, I can't compute the area. This is a generic shape. So in other words, in this loop, Java was smart enough to say, okay, at each step through the loop, I'm going to go look in my array, and for this first one, I have a generic shape, so I'll call its display area. And for these ones here, I actually have a circle object, so I'll call the circle display area. Okay? So that's kind of interesting, and that's sort of the beginnings of polymorphism is sort of what we're dealing with here, okay? Now, another thing that I could do is instead of calling this display area, you'll notice that, look, if I look in shape, see how I have this public string toString, okay? And then in circle, I also have a public string toString, okay? So circle has overridden the toString method that is defined in shape, okay? So that's another example of overriding. So I could actually go in here and change this to, so let's comment this out and we'll say, you know what? Let's just do a system.out.println and we'll just do shapes sub I, okay? So remember, when we try and print out an object, it's going to, by default, go back to that toString method, okay? And so you'll see that if I compile and run this, okay, that you'll see that I get, in the first case, the first time through the loop, I get the generic shape with color red, generic shape with color blue. Then it says, okay, I've got a circle with a radius 0. We never actually define the radius. That's why. If the radius is 0 in the color green, circle with the radius 0 in color black, generic shape with color orange. Okay? So again, Java is smart enough to decide which toString method it's going to use. Okay? So this is an example of why you would use method overriding. Now, you can imagine, suppose that in addition to circle, let's say that I had a rectangle class. Okay? And maybe my rectangle class also had a display area, and it had different attributes. So for a rectangle, might have side lengths or something like that. And its display area, again, would be different. And so in this case, I could put generic shapes, I could put circles, I could put rectangles. And then if I had a task where I had to go compute the area of all those things, I could very easily write a loop, go through, and I could compute the area using the overridden methods to compute the proper area depending on the type of shape that it is. Okay, so that's an example of why and how you would use overridden methods in Java.